Power Producers Shop Talk, where we are refining and redefining the sales game by equipping you with the tools you need to differentiate yourself in the marketplace.
Listening to the podcast is only going to get you so far. Why not take your game to the next level? Check out Power Producer Basecamp on killingcommercial.com today.
Tactical skills that'll help you provide deliverable value to your clients and prospects.
Want to have the sweet swag that we send out from the Power Producers podcast for your clients and employees? Check out PolicyT.com today.
And action items that you can provide to take your prospects and clients to the next level.
Want to create an online presence but don't know how to start? Check out crushingcontent.com. It's done for you, so all you have to do is show up.
This is Power Producers Shop Talk, production redefined. Are you ready to feel the power?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Power Producers Shop Talk, where we are going to wrap up our series on what I am going to title The Captive Conversation with Warren Cleveland from Captive Coalition. And in this episode, we are going to talk about the conversation framework that keeps you in control. I mean, that is number one. We have to assume you're in control already, so we're going to give you the benefit of the doubt. But to keep you there, man, because right now, I look at my book of business almost like I look at my website, right? Like if you've ever seen a cybersecurity report on your website, and I get a really detailed one from our managed services provider, it's going to show you that you're constantly under attack. There are people that are hammering that site while you're sleeping. You never know who they are, where they're coming from, what angle they're going to take, but they continue to pepper your website
Russians
until they find vulnerability and they get in. It's no different than your competition on your book of business.
Oh yeah, couldn't agree more. Right? If you're, the hard market is one thing, and that you're looking at a renewal and like, okay, we got to go play carrier ping pong, which I hate that. I hate that. Because that's all it is right? You got some marketing rep coming in your office and say, oh, give us this. Here's what our list looks like. And then that changes because some VP in some room in some other state decided they don't like that. And then so you got to play this game, and it's already hard enough to go protect your book of business because that the industry is designed to make you like this hamster wheel thing where you're going on and on, and you're never going to get off, right? You write these accounts and it's the service, it's the small and middle stuff that just kill you, right? Kills your time, right? So that's why, Dave, that's why I like so much about what you're doing is you're teaching agents how to go after these larger accounts where, if you talk 20 accounts in the captives versus 20 accounts in, writing BOPs, I mean, how much more work is it to do what they're doing versus what you and I are talking about?
Right.
I mean,
and by the way, if you're writing 20 accounts that are big enough to be in captives, you're 20 to 25 accounts.
You don't need to write
well
bops.
over $1 million in your book.
Million. Exactly. Well over $1 million in revenue. Every bit of it. So then, now that we got that out of the way, because we look, as I said before in this podcast, is that this is not a silver bullet. This will not solve your problem. If your clients or prospects, you're coming to them and you're pitching this as another market, you've already lost. This is not.
Let me tell you what I would pitch this to as a producer. Like if I'm talking to you as a producer, this is your business continuity plan for your book of business, because right now there is an end point for when people are going to work with you, and you have to have a plan in place for when accounts get to a certain size. This is when we have this conversation. This is how we introduce them. And now I can just represent them forever. There's really no reason for them ever to leave me if I can continue to deliver. Now I've got you in a captive. It's performing well. There's not going to be really a competitive advantage of leaving one captive and going to the other if we're doing things right. You certainly don't want to, based on how much collateral you would have to have tied up in the one you're leaving, plus what you have to put up in the one that's going in. I would make the argument that it's the best business continuity plan, and it should be your finish line, because when you can get somebody to that point, you've probably got a client for life at that point. And I also know that the Captive Coalition has some mechanisms built in where they're not going to take agent of record letters from other people that want to come in and try and take over your relationship and leave it with them. If you get the reward for the work and you get the reward of being the relationship for that piece of business for its longevity. But I don't think very many producers look at the fact that there's a stopping point for what they're capable of in their book of business, and the only reason that exists is because they allow it to. There's tools and mechanisms to keep that from happening.
It is, and there's one paradigm I want to get over for agents. And I was in a top 50 agency owners office a few months back, and he's talking to me about he doesn't really know how captives work. He had a couple of agents in his office, and this is what scared me the most for him. He didn't really understand how it worked. He only had a couple of agents really kind of mess with it, and he's top 50 in the country for revenue, right? Top 50. Think about what that is. And he's like, I got so many mouths to feed and contingency money that we get from these carriers. I'm not sure it's a thing. Okay. So you're gonna, so his pain was, I don't want to lose revenue off of this, right? Because he's an agency owner. He's not really doing day-to-day production. His producers, only a handful of them really mess with it. So that means the rest of his book of business is now exposed to guys who are going to own it, who are going to own how this strategy works and use it not as a sales or not as we're not flipping policies, but we're selling a long-term business strategy that a CFO or CEO is going to understand that, hey, you're going to take all this aggravation and pain off of me because my losses are tied to my renewal premiums directly. I'm not having to worry about what's going on in the outside market. I now have stability in my cost, and now I have transparency because I can see every dollar and where it goes. I don't necessarily need to be in the insurance business, but I understand it, right? And now I have control about what happens. So you put a business owner in that position to make those decisions, and you don't do it because you're worried about losing contingency dollars. Well, this goes back to the conversation I think we had one or two episodes about how to add value to your client and collect a fee that makes sense. But you should not be relying on luck to hold on to your book of business, right? Because that's exactly what you're doing. You're hoping that nobody comes across that really shiny client. And like I said, this guy's top 50. They have plenty of them. And if you're not using this strategy to go and get, this is, like you say, give me that guy's book of business and let me go target it, right? I'm not going to do it because I don't compete with agents, but somebody like you would absolutely go target every one of that guy's accounts.
I wouldn't have to leave my office. It's a simple phone call.
Yeah. So the strategy is like, when I was a retail agent, I love to share this because I learned this from my Sandler sales coach, Tim Goering. I'll give a shout out to Tim. And he comes on he does a lot of stuff with our members as well. Business owners, when they'd ask me, well, what do you do? I show business owners how to own their own insurance company, right? That's a 5-second pattern interrupt that blows them away. They're like, what? They have no idea what the hell I just said. Like, and they're saying, what'd you say? Yeah, like I show business owners how to own their insurance company. Well, what does that mean? Well, business owners come to us because they're fed up with this, they're frustrated with that, and they're just pissed off because of blah, blah, blah. Hopefully that's not you, right? That's an introduction to the conversation. Tell me more. Well, how does that work? That's in your training picks right up on that, right? How to have that conversation. And that's what this has to be. If you go into a conversation about captives with, we can save you 50%, that's not going to work, right? That's going to fall on deaf ears. Everybody
you're setting
says
yourself
that.
up for disaster because the reality is, you're far more versed in this than I am. But the reality is, it may actually cost you a little bit more in the first year or two.
Oh, it will.
Because of the collateral that you're putting up.
It will.
Everything. You have to have a long-term vision on this.
Yeah.
To make sure that you understand it. So if I'm leading with, I'll save you 50%, and now you're paying 20%, 25% more, whatever that number is, I've already shot myself in the foot. I don't have that person's trust.
Yeah, your premium is not, your clients, when they come into the captive, typically, it's not going to vary much than they're paying today. It'd have to be grossly off by a bunch.
Right.
But the captive doesn't want to take the risk of you being lucky, and then all of a sudden now we get crushed. Because remember, you're still running an insurance company, except now your clients own it. So they're even more in tune with keeping the thing running and making sure it doesn't blow up. right? Now we've got reinsurance and all kinds of different things to protect if everybody had a bad day. But you're 100% right, Dave. You're going to spend more money the first year and the second year, depending on how much collateral you're putting up, to get into the captive. So this is not a premium savings day one kind of thing. This is a long-term play, right? Because we're not going to pay underwriting profit for year one policy until like year 4, year 5, assuming the regulator approves it and everybody's on board. And we've had good performance in the captive. So I think it's important for agents to understand that this idea is a long-term strategy, and you do not want to put this up against a typical renewal and say, well, we've got these 5 markets and then we've got this captive market. It's completely separate. Just don't do it, please. Whatever you do. I know, and I get calls from agents, hey, I need a quote in 30 days. Like, this is not a quoting machine. Like, this isn't something you go put in a computer and out comes, here's your miracle. Now we're doing things to get rid of the friction in the process, but captives inherently are such a different thing because your clients have been buying insurance the same way they have for the last 15 years. To throw this at them at the same time because it's convenient, or you're doing it as a defensive mechanism, bad idea. So what are we trying to say? Learn about this now. Don't do what I did, right? 2017, I had my first captive presentation where somebody was showing me how it worked. 2021 is when I lost my biggest client because I was too stupid to go pay attention. Become the quarterback in this, not the vendor.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, that's, to me, that's what we teach anyhow, right? You have to be the quarterback. You have to coordinate between what your agency is going to deliver, what the carrier is going to deliver, what you expect from the client, whatever they may, whatever third-party loss control that you have to come in. The majority of what I do on my accounts is just connecting people and facilitating to make sure ultimately that we deliver on what we promised we would give them. And this is no different than that. It's a little bit of a different skill set, because if you're a producer that's used to coming in and just hammering, let me do due diligence on your policies. Let me see if you have any gaps in coverage, this, that, and the other, not that doesn't work. It's just not the same skill set. You need to come in and be able to step back, be more of a visionary and more strategic in your thought process. And as you get more experience doing that, it becomes far more easy for you to have those conversations, because you're not just having conversations, you're now telling stories and getting social proof based on what you've been able to accomplish for other people. But the whole thing starts with strategy. How do you know if you're a strategic ally to your clients? If they call you before they do things instead of after. It's really that simple. If your client picks up the phone and says, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, what would be the ramifications for me if I do this?
Yeah.
You're a strategic advisor to them. If your client calls you on Monday and says, hey, what would happen if I would have used our dump truck in the Christmas parade Saturday? This coming Saturday? No, last Saturday. Well, probably should have had the conversation ahead of time. You're not a strategic advisor to them. They're looking to see whether or not you're going to try and figure out a way to get a claim covered that they just haven't told you has happened yet. Yep. And you have to position yourself that way. I'm gonna give you a very hard truth right here, people. Most salespeople, if not all salespeople, are never viewed as strategic advisors. You're viewed as salespeople because you tie your worth to a product that you deliver that they pay for. But when you can learn to sell your intellectual capital and the systems that you've made for a specific niche in the industry, you move from salesperson to strategist almost instantly. And people are going to respect you far more than that, far more for that. I don't have a single client right now that has a doubt that I know how to place their insurance. Very rarely do we talk about it, though. We're talking about, how are you growing? How can I help you grow more profitably? What is your roadmap for the next 24 to 48 months? Let's look at these things that you may encounter. Like, we're talking about strategic growth, growing the top line, preserving the bottom line. That's what strategic advisors do. Hey, can I get your payrolls by class code and 3 years of loss runs? That's who you compete against. Strategic advisors win 100% of the time when that's what you compete against. That's the mental shift you have to have. And I know it sounds cliche. I know it's been being told for decades. Some of y'all are just too dumb to hear it. I mean, you're not listening. You're hearing noise, but you're not like actually processing what it is. And you're the first ones to bitch when you lose an account. And I don't feel bad for any of you when that happens.
Right. So here's the question though. Like we've talked about not being on the defensive with regard to it and sitting around and presenting this at renewal. When's the right time to do it?
I like 90 days after renewal, right?
Oh, yeah.
90 days. And actually, if you want to talk like where we're getting into the guts about how it works and all that stuff, you should be talking about this well before that. Kind of like what we talked about, the claims review you had after the last renewal a year ago. You should be saying, hey, there are other ways that we can, strategic advisor, there are other ways we can manage risk and transfer risk by saving you money, right? You perform well enough that we should start looking in this direction, right? And you start planting that seeds. And then we have all the stuff in our membership site that we give you to like drip on these people. So you don't have to go, that's what I tell agents. You don't have to go be the expert in this, right? You don't have to understand aggregate attachment points and how collaterals determine and what a loss pick. And you don't have to know all of that today.
It helps you, but I mean, you don't have to know it right now.
Sure. Right. You don't have to know it right now, right? You can leave the technical stuff to us, but you have to understand the basic mechanism and then like, how do we drip this out? How do we start talking about, hey, are you interested in taking a little more risk on yourself in order to get a better return on your insurance spend? Right? That's a good question. And I'm sure, Dave, I'm sure you have 100 of these introductions about how to take somebody from no idea about what captive is to, okay, this makes sense, let's do it, right? 100 introductions along the way.
100%.
Because they're not going to do this tomorrow. Like, when I showed up with the captive proposal for my private equity client that I was losing and asked them for $5 million, knowing full well they weren't going to do it, right? But I had to, at least in my gut, say that I tried, right? You can't do that. They're not going to, people aren't business owners. When we start asking for, if you're $500,000 in insurance spend and we're asking you for, $1.25 for collateral, they're not going to just do that. Right? They have to know in advance, well in advance, how it's going to work, where the risk is. Every good business owner that's a friend, client or not, they don't haphazardly write six-figure checks. They just don't, regardless of how big their balance sheet is.
Right. No, 100%. They write six-figure checks,
but
it's only after you've taken the time to educate them and they know exactly what they're getting into. That's why they have large companies that are successful.
Yeah, exactly. They take calculated risks. And that's what a captive is all about, a calculated risk. I know exactly how much money I'm going to have to spend if everything goes to shit.
Perfect. What have we missed, man? I feel like we've drilled captives like solid for 4 episodes.
You know what? I just don't want agents to end up where I was. Right. And that was losing that big account. And I want to shout it from
the thing. Let's take that a step further, right? Because you lost a $300,000 account.
Revenue.
I'm equally as in revenue. I'm equally as worried as the agent who loses $650,000 revenue accounts who thinks, oh, well, I don't have anything that's 300,000. So this really doesn't apply to me. Yeah, well, you actually do. And if you're listening and running the numbers, your $50,000 accounts, every bit is at risk in revenue is the 300,000. $500,000 in premium is going to play all day in this space.
All day. Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Don't let it happen to you.
All right. Well, that's it. I'm letting it go right there. We're going to have Warren's contact information in the show notes. Hopefully this has been a valuable series to you. I encourage you to reach out to him at Captive Coalition. It's captivecoalition.com. I'm assuming, right? There's nothing special about it.
Nothing.
Some people put the captive. No, captivecoalition.com. Check Warren's active on LinkedIn. Check him out there. And then stay tuned because we're going to actually do an interactive webinar. It's coming up on September 18th, kind of on the heels to this. I would encourage you to sign up for that as soon as you see that sign up available, and that'll give you an opportunity to listen to the Shop Talk series and formulate some questions you may have. And if you don't proactively reach out to Warren ahead of time, you'll have the ability to ask him live when we have that on September 18th. So we will catch you guys later. See ya.